Hi, Democrats. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Tuesday. So today I'm just going to hit you with a bunch of numbers, right? Hit you with a bunch of numbers. First number, border crossings in the United States at the southern border are down to the lowest levels they've been in a few years. So who knows? Who knows what Langford is going to do now that he's not going to get to whine about border crossing? Or maybe he will continue to whine about border crossing because it doesn't seem like the truth matters at all. So I'm going to hit you with that. Border crossings are down. There's a whole lot of noise about border crossings. There's a whole lot of crazy activity going on this other side. And I just want to talk about it because I think it's important that we recognize. I think it's important that we recognize, acknowledge, and discuss the fact that lies are being told and we have to tell the truth. They are trying to get people, Abbott and DeSantis and Langford are trying to get people all excited about border crossing, and they're trying to make it into some big, huge deal. Stop it. The truth is the numbers of border crossings are down to its lowest levels in 5 years. And so they understand that election season is coming, and they understand that their plan is to scare people to the polls. They want to scare you to the polls instead of inspiring you with policy and doing good. And so border crossing down. So remember that when they start complaining about Biden's open borders, because it's not a real thing. And what is real is the barbaric wire that they have that people can cut themselves and hurt themselves badly as they try to cross. No, people shouldn't be crossing in a place where they should be crossing at designated spaces. But maiming folks doesn't seem like the right solution. Absolutely doesn't seem like the American way. Just not good. Another number I want to throw at you. Folks who voted for Trump in 2020. Folks who voted for Trump in 2020 admit, 62% of them admit that racism against Black people is a big problem in our country. 62%. So that sounds good, right? It sounds like they're coming around, that they understand what is happening. The second statistic is what gets you. 73% of them say that racism against white people is a bigger problem. First of all, learn the definition of racism. Secondly, stop playing. Food banks. Food banks are at a crisis level. They're at a crisis level right now. They're down, mainly because SNAP benefits have been cut and more people are depending on food banks to feed themselves and their families. And right now, food banks are having a hard time keeping up with the demand. I say that for a whole lot of reasons. One, we need to be aware of what is happening to our friends and neighbors. And two, when the Republicans tell you that we don't need social safety net programs managed by the government because our charitable resources will take care of it, it's a made up thing. Our charitable resources are being overwhelmed because we don't have enough social safety nets. I'm just telling you this because I want to remind you that there is a real contrast. And if you're on the same team that I'm on, we are on the right side. We are on the side that says, let's do what we can to help people so they're not starving. We're on the side that says maiming people as they're trying to come and get them a little taste of the American dream is not okay. We're on the right side. In Oklahoma, and I'm going to shout out to Senator George Young. In Oklahoma, Senator George Young, and I don't remember who in the House, but it was a Democrat who picked it up in the last legislative session, has been trying to change minimum wage for at least the last 3 or 4 legislative cycles. He's been trying to increase minimum wage. And either it doesn't get heard or it gets heard and mocked. Because our Oklahoma legislature, the folks in the majority in our Oklahoma legislature are just fine with minimum wage at $7.25 an hour. And they don't have to look it up. They don't have to wonder what it is, because as of yesterday, the federal minimum wage has been $7.25 an hour for 14 years. 14 years. Now, the folks at the top keep getting raises. The folks at the top keep maximizing their income. But at the front line, minimum wage has been $7.25 an hour. That is not a livable wage. That is not a manageable wage. But that's what it is. And in Oklahoma, we're not doing anything about it anytime soon, which is depressing. Now, speaking of wages and depressing, tomorrow is Equal Pay Day for Black women in America. Now, this is a thing, I was a full-on adult before I understood what this was. Equal Pay Day means that it will take a woman, what is this? This is 7. So it will take a Black woman 19 months, almost 20 months, to earn as much as it takes a man to earn in 12 months. So the full year, more than half a year, and rounding out close to 20 months to make what a white man makes in America. Tomorrow is Equal Pay Day for African American women. That shows you that this isn't a level playing field. It is not a level playing field. It's not a field where folks can just pick themselves from the bootstraps, because picking themselves up the bootstraps assumes that we're all starting at the same level. If it takes a Black woman 19 months to make the same thing it takes a white man to make in 12, that tells you a whole lot about what's working on in our society, that the equity is not there, and we still have work to do. But as always, I try to end on a positive note. I've given you some crazy news, but I want to end on a positive note about a negative point in our history. Today, the president signed the Federal Anti-Lynching Act and is creating monuments in Mississippi and Illinois to Emmett Till. And for those of you who aren't up on it, Emmett Till was a 14-year-old in, I want to say 1961. He was 14 years old, and he lived in Illinois. He went to Mississippi to stay with family. He was taken out by white terrorists, beaten, murdered, drowned. They took his body. They attached something, I think it was a motor. They chained a motor to him so that he would sink. And they later turned up his body. It was battered, swollen, horrific, when his mother was able to claim his body. And his mother, Mamie Till, wanted the world to see what happened to our child. And it was a turning point in the civil rights movement, because people couldn't deny that it happened when they saw what happened. They couldn't deny that it happened. And so these monuments, there's one in Mississippi where he was murdered, in Illinois where he lived. These monuments will not bring him back. It will not erase all the other lynchings that happened in that time or since. But acknowledgement goes a long way towards dealing with and healing from some of our tragic history as a nation. So I'm grateful to the president and the vice president for being there, acknowledging it, for signing the bill, acknowledging it, for making these monuments. Because if we don't learn from our history, as I talked about yesterday, we are doomed to repeat it. And since there are so many folks who are trying to erase the actual history of African Americans in this country, I applaud the president for acknowledging the history. All righty. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with only good news. I live in Oklahoma, but hopefully I'll be back tomorrow with only good news about politics in Oklahoma. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you at 4:15.